All right, good afternoon, everyone. It's Sunday, March 8th, 2026, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time here in Champaign, Illinois. Clocks have gone forward an hour. YouTube says 17 concurrent viewers. You're joining me for our 5th session of the Deadbolt Mystery Society series, Letters from a Ghost Hunter, their first experimentation with a long multi-part series. My impressions so far are a bit mixed. It does have some of the stuff that I like most about the Deadbolt Mystery Society games, puzzles, which is a good mix of narrative and puzzle. But I think I speak for many of us when I say the leaning on cipher heavy stuff has been a bit of a miss. But let's check in with the chat, see how everyone is doing. See what we're up to. Okay, shall we open our letter and get started? Or am I expected to talk about my trip to Japan? I suppose I'm expected to talk a little bit about my trip to Japan. Some of you know that I've been away for the last week in Japan visiting my wife's family. So I'll tell you a little bit about my trip to Japan. Let's see if I've got photos here. Yes. Okay, so here we are. I just have a few photos. I'm not really a photo-taking person. Here we are climbing Mount Takao in Tokyo. We spent, I was only there for, well, let me set this up a little bit. So I've been married for maybe 8 years or so. And this is the first trip that we've taken to Japan. She goes to Japan once or twice a year to visit family. She's got a mother and father in Japan, in Tokyo, and a son living in Japan. But that gives you some idea of how I'm really not a travel person. I occasionally go visit my family in New York or Florida, and the last couple years I went and there was all these delays in the flights, and I was like, that's it, I'm done, no more traveling, I don't want this in my life, I just want to stay home. But it was time to go to Japan. Okay, so anyway, the deal we made was that we'd make it a very short trip, which is insane because it takes like a full 26 hours. It takes over a day of traveling to get from one house to the other house. So we basically left on a Friday and came back on a Friday. So a 7-day span, basically. And of those 7 days, two of those 7 days plus a little bit more were spent traveling. So I only spent 5 days there, but that's the way it had to get done. So, does this work? Yeah, okay, all right. So here we are climbing Mount Takao. So on one of the early days when we got there, we went on a climbing trip. There are a lot of mountains in Japan, Mount Fuji being probably the most famous one, and my wife loves hiking and climbing. So we spent a full day climbing Mount Tikal and related mountains. And we hiked about 18 kilometers, about 20 miles, 9 hours. And for the whole rest of the trip, legs hurt. And at the end of this trip, he could barely walk, barely climb stairs at least. And here's another view. You really can't see much here, not much point. Is there another photo here? That's it. Okay, so somewhere in our hike, we went off trail. We got on a logging trail. And basically for 2 hours, we're lost on the mountain on a 50-year-old or however many year old trail we were on. And after about an hour, I started taking photos of little landmarks so that they could find our bodies. Not really find our bodies, but so that the rescuers could locate us. But we did eventually get back on a trail. All right, that's it for the photos. I really didn't take much, but we went to a couple of things. Mostly this was to visit family, but we went to a robot restaurant. We ate some nice tempura with a live chef, but everything else I was like minimal human interaction. So we went to a robot restaurant. We went to a sushi conveyor belt restaurant. We went to the local board game store in Shinjuku, in the nearby center, the closest big center. And you can see I picked up Eternal Decks, which is a very cool looking cooperative deck builder type game designed by a Japanese designer and not yet out in the US. I mean, I loved Japan. The Japanese are much closer to my well, let me think. What's a better way to say it? First of all, I was very impressed with Tokyo. As someone who grew up in New York City, in a touristy part of New York City, in Soho and Manhattan, where I hated all the tourists running around. Tokyo, at least where my wife's family lived, was actually quite nice, because it was sort of like you had blocks of proper big city blocks with lots of stores and millions of tiny little restaurants, mom and pop restaurants or stands where food, but then you go 2 blocks away and you're in a residential area with all freestanding little small houses with backyards, small tiny yards, but really quite nice mixing of residential and big city in a way that I didn't expect. And I'm also quite fond of the Japanese approach to sort of public respect for interfering with someone's what's the right way to say it? If you're on a Japanese train, you don't talk on your cell phone. That would be completely unacceptable. And being like loud and noisy while you're sitting next to someone else would be disrespectful. To me, that's very close to my heart. I like that. I hate listening to people talk on the phone, whatever. We got back in the airport on the way home, and there was some American people, a couple feet away from me talking loudly, and I was like, how do you guys stand? It was like excruciating listening to these Americans after just a week listening to Japanese in Tokyo. It felt much more civilized. I was not 100% happy to be listening to Americans speaking in their way. in their boisterous way. And I was thinking, how are you people putting up with me talking so much? Don't we all want some more peace and quiet here? So maybe I'll try to talk slower and more quietly and more respectfully. But yeah, great trip. Okay. Eternal Decks is nice. Did you manage to get the third edition? I didn't know there was a third edition. This was just released. Well, I don't know. I bought. It seemed newly released in the Japanese board game store, Yellow Submarine. So I suspect it's the latest edition, but I don't know. All right. Now, what else? I also bought a small little mystery game that we played, but not worth, more for children. Okay, before we get started today, a couple more things. There'll be lots of streaming this month, including a stream I scheduled for later this afternoon, where I'm going to unbox and discuss the Season 2 Seventh Citadel Kickstarter that just delivered yesterday. And that's right there. And I'll do a little bit of griping about the size of that box and the contents of it, but I'm a big fan of Seventh Citadel. I'm curious to see what's actually in that box, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about when we're next going to play Seventh Citadel. So if you just want to hang out and chat for a little bit over some coffee, I'll be doing that at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, I think about 3 hours from now. All right, so I guess we can get started with our next letter. I'm going to need a little bit of a recap here. Let's see, how have we organized letters from a ghost hunter? Did I mention? I don't think I mentioned that thanks to some people in the Discord, I found out that Deadbolt Mystery Society is trying this again. And they've announced a new series, a new 12-part letter series called, I think this one is Letters from a Serial Killer. Same format, 12 letters once per week over 3 months. I'm not sure if, well, let me not impute motives to Deadbolt Mystery Society, but they do, it does seem like it's a little quick to be doing this again, but maybe the economics of it makes sense. I did purchase it thanks to the Patreon supporters of this channel. I'm not sure if we're going to try to play it as it comes out, because I think we need a little break from this to get back to our Dear Home stuff. But, all right, so let's remind ourselves. I did reorganize this a little bit, but as a reminder, since it's been a while since we played, we are the owner of a sanatorium asylum where our daughter went missing many years ago. There is supernatural elements in this case, and we've hired someone, or we've got a friend who from this company, Ghostrid, who communicates with ghosts and stuff. He's gone to this asylum, which is shutting down, to investigate it. He has stumbled upon clues that our daughter Nancy left before she went missing. She was investigating a serial killer called TikTok. And Whether we're going to find Nancy dead or alive, I don't know. I'm quite sure that we are also on the trail of this serial killer, who we think worked at the asylum. And clearly one of the structural gimmicks of this game is that each letter we're discovering new suspects and we're discovering clues to help us rule out or in suspects. So in our first letter, we discovered this person, Kevin LeClerc, and we've got the age and height and color, and then we discovered this person, Carter Ennis, and then the chemist, Franklin Betts, and you can see we've got ages, heights, and whatever, and then as we're playing, we're getting some clues about the serial killer's identity. We're also getting clues about Nancy's cipher over time. I think we have enough to decode any message from her. Here's another suspect of ours. Garrett Arndt, the chief of surgery. And then as we went, we did get some more clues about, like, TikTok is this age. So I think over time we're going to be able to rule people out or in. Well, there is a ghost, Arlo Hunt, that we've been talking to quite a bit. The other big piece of this mystery, TikTok's not a patient. So in one of our recent letters, what we heard about is that there's some nefarious stuff going on at the sanatorium. Like they are not just taking care of crazy people, but making people a little bit crazy using this experimental drug, Neuroquel. And the company working on this drug is called Blackspire Pharmaceuticals, Blackspire Pharma. And they were obviously doing some horrible experiments, whatever. And we got a couple of clues about our serial killer that made the case much more interesting very recently. The first thing we learned is that this serial killer is killing people at like a very specific time of the night or setting their clocks to a weird time. We've got a page of information about our suspects, and then somewhere here, maybe in one of the letters, we heard that people were getting killed and their clocks were being set at 3:17. So there's something about 3:17 that's important. And then we decoded this message that said you should look into the name Morris Cook. TikTok does this for him. So we don't know who Morris Cook is, but we do think that TikTok is somehow motivated by this person. We don't quite understand what that's about. And we've got a little card that we don't know how to use. So I'm just going to put this back. We'll look through these items eventually. We've been trying to keep track of all the different players. We've got our suspects, and we've got the owner of this place, Jeremiah McClinton, doctor, the person talking to us, Arlo Hunt, the last victim from the newspaper, Janet Watkins. We don't really understand what she's about. The time each watch stopped is significant. TikTok is not a patient. Okay, so that's the 3:17. In fact, maybe we should put this here. Most of them, or at least two of them, had a clock that was stopped at 3:17, and one had a digital clock which ran out of batteries. All right, is there anything else for us to recap before we read today's letter? Let's see. Melissa says, I finished this letter, waiting on the rest to stay with the channel. Bo Evans says, I've received my 7th letter already, so have I. So at least we're finally ahead of the curve, and it looks like Deadbolt Mystery Society realized that they were cutting it too close with them when they were mailing the letters, so they sent a bunch out early. Okay. If there's nothing else that I've forgotten to recap, we'll open letter number 5 here. And we'll see where we stand. All right, looks like I can see already we're back with the ciphers. Quick glance at our content. Looks like about par for the course. Let me remind you, the structure of these letters tend to be an introduction letter for this week with new stuff. And at the back, this guy, we're talking to our friend, Elijah Nicholas. He tends to write the first half about recap of last week, telling us things we should have already figured out. So this is a nice little gate to make sure we have found everything that we were supposed to find last week. Maybe a little bit of a hint of something that we didn't use yet, but we will need to. And then this second half are like hints for this week. But it's not described as hints, but that's how we found it. So we have been trying to avoid reading this part until the end of the case. But we'll get ourselves started by reading this here. Today's letter. Week number 5. First off, I need to apologize. I didn't know what I was going to find in the old Valewood Church. I had no idea the horrific nature of what I was going to uncover. Fortunately, Nancy wasn't one of the bodies I discovered. We discovered bodies buried inside a wall. They were the friends of Nancy that also disappeared at the same time as Nancy. So the fate of that group, most of them got killed, but Nancy, maybe not. Okay, Nancy wasn't one of the bodies I discovered. Still, I know it must have caused your stomach to tie itself in knots, since those 3 were part of her group. I will try to be more sensitive moving forward when revealing bits of information, especially if I think it pertains to Nancy. Forgive me, old friend. I'm sure finding out what happened to them will lead me that much closer to finding out what happened to Nancy. With that said, I'm going to try and be more methodical moving forward and have specific questions that I attempt to answer each and every week based on what I've learned so far. We have quite a few threads to pull on at the moment. We're in the kitchen dining room this week. In this case, I have a little information ahead of time. The guy who ran the kitchen was named Peter Poe. By all accounts, he was generally liked by most. Of course, that's what you would expect. He provided a service that people needed and wanted. He was definitely more popular than the electroshock therapy technician. Shocking, I know. I kid. Anyway, back to the fate of Sherry, Kate, and Richard. I'm not a pathologist, so I can't be sure of how they died. The bodies were obviously decayed. But since their bodies were put behind a wall, I think it's safe to assume they didn't die of natural causes. I'm going to try and conduct some experiments to communicate with their spirits and see what I can learn. I have items from each of them that I was able to take from their remains that I can use as trigger objects. So, my objectives are as follows. 1. Talk to the spirits of Sherry, Kate, and Richard, if they're still around, and see if I can learn more about who killed them. 2. In her last note, Nancy mentioned getting into the locker of TikTok's 8th victim, Janet Watkins. I found some admin records in the HR office and have determined that her locker was 212. All I need now is the combination, or some bolt cutters, if I can find a pair. If I can figure out what the combination is, maybe I can see if there's anything else that might have been left behind. Valewood shut its doors only a few days after she died. 3. Obviously, I will conduct some paranormal experiments in the kitchen. Obviously. or find out more about who else is here in Valewood with me. I stumbled across yesterday's newspaper on the admissions desk, and I didn't put it there. Who is here with me? So in his last letter, he mentioned someone else is walking around the sanatorium with us, possibly this serial killer. So it's a little bit dangerous here. All right, let's read our recap of last week's stuff. Thoughts, observations for last week's mailing. Let's talk about that photo that Nancy left. She is playing the long game with this, I think. It will take several more weeks before I have all of these photos. He's talking about this. So we have this. We have no idea what it is. It's clearly not finished. We're probably going to get more that will assemble. But one of the things that Deadbolt Mystery Society has done fairly well with this series is give enough information, hints about what stuff has not yet been used and should be held on for next time. So he's saying it's going to take a few weeks before we put these together. She's been cautious about what she leaves behind. At the moment, I'm calling these puzzle pieces because I think that's what they are. And what about that page from the spell book I found in the exam room? I used the symbol from patient 164's wall and decoded the name of the spell book's owner. And the numbers I found with the spell book in mailing 4 told me which word fragments to pull from that list. The message it resulted in was chilling. As I mentioned last week, I felt that something evil was here. I dare not speak its name. Okay, we had some real complaints there because it used an online element, but we did decode it. I think that was the one that said... There was also this that we decoded, the Whisperer in Ward C, also known as Malachor. He's been here for eons. Almost felt like we had a little bit of a time travel element going on here. I'm not sure if that's realistic. Okay, Nancy's getting more clever with each message I find. That light I sent in week 1 should have come in very handy with the story on the back of her note. So we used a black light to discover a little note that she had written. Last but not least, I finally got to talk to the mortician. His instructions led me to the final resting place of Nancy's 3 friends. By placing dots over the names he told me and marking through other names, I created a series of dots and dashes that mimicked Morse code. Clever. Not as clever, actually, as he thinks. I was not thrilled about that puzzle. Anyway, I'm still trying to determine why he gave me that information. Based on what I know about Angus Cartwright, he wasn't regarded as a particularly good guy. But some of the things he said in my Spirit Box session made me think he might be very misunderstood. I think the person they're talking about is the mortician who was blamed for some of the deaths, but he said I think he was saying he didn't kill them all, or he killed them on someone's instruction, or someone else killed them. Maybe you can remind me. Regardless of what the local legends say about him and how he haunts this place, I'm not at all certain he is the big bad here. Clearly not. This week's mailing contains... Okay, so we're going to skip the rest of that till we get to the end. Maybe they're all possessed by the ghost of TikTok and do the killing for him, so they're all crazy. Would not surprise me. Interesting, maybe. He didn't kill them, he just did the cleanup. That sounds more right to me. All right, let's see what we've got. We've got a new suspect. This is the kitchen chef, and he was quite well liked. And who is it? Peter Poe, kitchen manager, 34 years old, 6'1", 195 pounds, black hair, blue eyes. We were told something about how he doesn't have, TikTok doesn't have ink, doesn't have tattoos, I think. So this guy has a little bit of a tattoo on his hand. Kind of hard to make out, but I believe that's going to eliminate him. He's got what looks like that same protective tattoo. I'll find our notes about all the details about TikTok, but I believe we were told he does not have a tattoo. Of course, you could be writing that stuff on your hand to protect yourself if you were sort of crazy. All right, what have we got here? Is this again by Elijah? I guess this is the first page. It's hard to know because we've got notes from Nancy. Oh, this is from Nancy. Okay, so let's leave that aside for a second. We've got a Ouija board here. Do you think we need to check this for black light, or is this just going to be used? Black light writing on it. All right, so we don't know what this is going to be used for. That's something, shall we? All right, we've got another of our postcard images with more arrows. Maybe we'll just put this with, maybe we'll put all of these together on a page. Won't worry about it for now. From the kitchen. From the kitchen of Peter Poe, I've prepared last meals for the worst society has to offer. Now I'm working with those same elements. I don't agree with most of what they're doing, but they know my leverage point and use it whenever it suits them. I thought it would be the humane thing to fix a last meal for each of the poor souls whose time had run out, as sort of an apology about what they were about to endure. When I offered to fix them a special meal, they didn't understand why, but I knew and tried to extend one last kindness before they were taken. God help them and me. Okay, so there's some grand conspiracy going on where people are being killed at a certain time, and this guy is being blackmailed, leveraged into helping this group here do these killings, it sounds like. Okay, and then here are the people he prepared meals for, and look who's the last one on our list, the last victim. So this guy is preparing meals for the victims of the serial killer, being forced to help them. It's not one person, it's some conspiracy, some group of people. Interesting. The meals were as follows. TAJTTKRS. So you would think this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But they're letters instead of numbers. Are these telling us that T is the letter 1? That doesn't make sense because we've got repeats here. We've got 3 T's. So it can't be telling us that T goes to the letter 1. So I don't know. You could ask what's in common between Harold Milton and Lillian Shore, 1 and 4, that make them both T's. Don't know. lemon herb roasted chicken with garlic potatoes and lima beans, beef stir fry with broccoli, bell pepper, and jasmine rice, spaghetti marinara with meatballs and a side Caesar salad, fish tacos with cabbage slaw, pico de gallo, and lime crema, vegetable curry, chickpeas, sweet potato, spinach over basmati rice, cheeseburger with caramelized onions, fries, and pickles, teriyaki salmon with sesame noodles and steamed edamame. That sounds like a Japanese person. Breakfast for dinner, fluffy pancakes, scrambled eggs, and crispy bacon. Now, here's a little fun little element here. Whenever you're looking at like a message, a poem, whatever, and you're looking for secret embedded ciphers and codes, one of the things that's occasionally a little bit of intuition is whether something is awkwardly enough phrased to feel like it was forced because they're writing a code. In other words, if you were going to use like the first letter of each word to spell out a message, you would read some odd, awkward English and you'd say, that sounds too odd. There's probably a message in there. Now, my gut tells me that this is too clean, that this is not awkward enough to be hiding a code. Now, you're writing a menu. You've got lots of freedom to think of words for ingredients, but this is too naturalistic. It sounds too on the money to be hiding a message in the letters. If that makes sense, is it clear what I'm trying to say? But maybe you have a different intuition than I do. It feels to me like it's just these letters at front that are out of place. Now, you could have the number of words be significant, but I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think a message is going to be hidden in these ingredient lists because they seem too natural. They don't seem awkward enough, but okay. I don't know what these first letters are, though. 8 numbers, 8 letters, but with repeats. Does his arm look weird, or is my resolution off? Did the letter have one that looked like a 7? Perry says it's interesting that this letter is center aligned. That is an interesting observation. Feels like that's probably a computer typesetting issue rather than a clue. But all right, let's continue reading here, though. I prepared these dishes to perfection and according to each person's instructions. Some were very specific and very unusual. Here are the requests I was given by each of them. Samuel Price insisted he received no food that had the same letter appearing twice in a row in its name. Goes without saying he was one of our patients here. Marcus Bell insisted on nothing with beef. Harold Minton hated cabbage and basically anything green. Okay, so it looks like we have a little constraint satisfaction puzzle where the number 1 on the list, Harold Minton, is not the one who got lemon herb roasted chicken, but that we're going to have to match these up. And when we do, we will have an order for these letters, and that will spell out something. I think that's what we've got here, right? In other words, this is not in the same order, and when we figure out that Harold had the teriyaki salmon, that would mean that the first letter of this word that we're going to decode is going to be the R, and so on. Okay, so we've got a little bit of constraint satisfaction. Marcus is not getting anything with beef. Harold Minton hated cabbage and anything green. Okay, so a little constraint satisfaction puzzle here. Asterisk. I also think it's worth mentioning that while the victims are listed in the order they died, the order of the dishes aren't in the order they're prepared, which is what we just inferred. Also, teriyaki salmon was prepared closer to the beginning of the list than the end. Okay, so maybe teriyaki salmon is going to belong in the top half of the list, something like that. Also, footnote, why am I mentioning any of this, you might wonder, or better yet, why am I writing it down? Consider it my attempt to make amends for being part of all this. Take the letters in the order the victims were taken. If you run across a locked file at some point called Blackledger, this is the password to unlock it. That feels like we don't need to, feels like it's giving us some big hints that we didn't need. I think the Deadbolt Mystery Society people are still finding their way with difficulty level here and how much to give away as hints. This feels like it would have been better not to put on this page, but would be better in a hints section or in a recap hints. I hope they find their way here a little bit. Okay, so we could solve this, and then in the future, we're going to know when to use it when we get this Blackledger file. Okay, we can solve that puzzle whenever we're ready to. Let's keep going, though. What have we got here? Ghostrid, that's the company that our friend Elijah Nicholas works for. So it looks like he's tried to contact the 3 dead friends of Nancy. Regarding Sherry, I found a car key in her pocket, although I have no idea where the car is. Sherry's spirit was still attached to the key itself. The lock and unlock buttons still light up when pressed. When I asked Sherry to give me a message, she responded with a series of button presses on the key. I noted the response: lock, unlock, unlock, lock, lock, unlock, lock, and so on. So, could be a kind of Morse code or could be binary, right? Like 1 0 0 1 1 0 1 and so on. Does it matter the order? Probably not, but it could be 1 0 or 0 1. We don't know what one goes with what. Let's take a look at how many we have. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. 2 3 4 5 6. So 20. 1 2 3 4 5. 25. That's not really promising for binary. If it was something like a factor of 8, then you'd say, okay, we've got an ASCII code here, even a factor of 7, but 25 is a little awkward. And then why would it be formatted 7 7 6 5? That's a little weird. That might make you lean a little bit heavier towards Morse code, where these are word breaks. Dot, dash, dash, dot, dot, dash, dot. That's too many for a normal single letter, though. So, okay, I don't know. Kate had a bracelet around her wrist. Like Sherry, she didn't have a lot to say other than a string of random letters that I heard audibly and wrote down. They are as follows. Okay, let's take a look at this. What jumps out at you here? If you look at the distribution, we've got a bunch of E's, a bunch of O's. A little unusual to be seeing a Z in there, but otherwise it almost looks like those would be the English letters in something that's rearranged. Not quite, but close. Lots of Ks. So, could be a shiftage, could be a Caesar cipher. Not much of a clue otherwise, though, to figure this out, except her name. So if I had to guess, I might guess that we're looking at a key phrase cipher where we're writing K-A-T-E, K-A-T-E, K-A-T-E on top of this, and then adding the letters. All right, Richard, each one has their name on it. Sherry, Kate, Richard. Okay, but if I had to guess, that's what I would guess we're looking at here. Richard, this was in his back pocket. The only thing I kept getting from him was the message lock and then unlock. Sounds like it's related to this. Lock and then unlock. A little odd. Huh. Not sure what to make of that one. What have we got here? Oh, here they are. I found this picture in Richard's wallet. I think this must be the three of them. Based on her last note, Nancy suspected at least some of them weren't truthful about why they had decided to come on the investigation. She mentioned Richard was going through her stuff. What was he looking for? I conducted an EVP session to try and get an answer out of him. This is what he said. Okay, so we've got a little bit of multimedia to listen to. Okay, for those of you who have worked on this letter already and solved it, please don't, I know you haven't, but just a reminder not to give us any solution or even hints until we ask for them, though. Okay, so here are the three dead youths. There is a Mr. Show skit about the dead youths. It's pretty funny. Missing youths. Does anyone know the skit I'm talking about? It's sort of a play on how the news refers to the missing youths or something. It's pretty funny. Okay, so we have to listen to this. I guess we might as well do that now. All right. All right, let's listen to this together.
Nancy kept
I can't hear it, but you
us.
can. It's nice and short, though.
Nancy kept
Why can I not
from
hear
us.
it? It's unfortunate.
Nancy kept things from us.
I see, we're gone for 1 week and everything breaks. You can hear it though, right? You can hear it, but I can't. Why would that be?
Nancy kept.
Really? What changed over 1 week that makes it broken? Okay. Oh, one little bug to fix. The chat says he was just saying Nancy kept things from us. You're not missing much. Nancy kept things from us. Okay, I'll rely on you to tell me if I need to know more than that. All right, well, this is a puzzle we have to solve, but let's put it away until we read the last element here. Then we'll return back to those puzzles. Let's see what this note from Nancy, which we aren't told where it came from. I don't love that. I think it's better for games to tell you where you find these items. To the one fortunate or unfortunate enough to be following this trail I've left behind, I guess I should explain a little bit more about why we are all here. Most paranormal investigation groups look for ghosts, not flesh and blood serial killers. As you have probably noticed, my notes have less to do with the paranormal in most cases and more to do with the person calling themselves TikTok, who has murdered 8 people at Valewood. The ghost stuff was just a way to get my foot in the door. I think it's all related to a degree, but there's something very specific I'm looking for here. I'm sort of the unofficial leader of our group, you see. So when I found out that Jansen was frat brothers with the chief of surgery at Valewood back in the day, I knew that was my way in. Why did I need a way in, you might ask? Well, my full name is Nancy Eleanor Montgomery. My mother's name was Evelyn Cross Montgomery. Cross was her maiden name. You may recognize that name as victim number 2 on the list of people who was murdered by TikTok. My mother suffered from paranoid delusions. We dealt with it until it became impossible to ensure she didn't harm herself. Then we had her admitted to Valewood and used her maiden name to help maintain a level of privacy that my mother would have wanted. She would have never wanted anyone to know she was being put into a place like Valewood, but we did it after a consult with a doctor who mentioned she might benefit from an experimental drug called Neuroquel. My father and I were desperate, of course. Let me just point out that here is Nancy doing her drop to use. Keep that in mind. That seems significant to me at some point. Anyway, the experimental drug called Neuroquel. My father and I were desperate, of course, so we decided to give it a shot. Mom never came back home. As you know, she was murdered here by TikTok. I can't imagine why anyone would want to hurt her. And I have made it my mission to find out the answers to those questions. That's the real reason I'm here, to find my mother's killer. You may wonder why the people shown in the Polaroids are actually suspects. It's simple, really. My mother kept a list. Whether or not the list was real or the result of her delusions, I don't know. But every name that I present to you was on her list. The list was entitled, "One of these people wants me dead." It's all I have to go on, so in my last note, I mentioned Janet Watkins, that nurse that got killed. I've been trying to find a way to get into her work locker to see if it had any answers about what was happening. I know her locker number. What I haven't been able to determine is the locker combination. I got the rest of the group together and decided to try and perform a seance to summon her spirit and ask her. Seems like a solid plan. What's even better is we got the combination. I'm going to use that as a hiding spot for anything I find in the near future. And then she's drawn a picture of the plinth. Is that what it's called? For the Ouija board, and it's on top of the J for whatever reason. Plinth? It's something with a P. The 5 of us placed our hands on the planchette. Oh, here it is, written right here. Not a plinth, a planchette. And started to move. The number of spaces we drifted left matched the number of TikTok's victims. Okay, so it goes 8 to the left. Then we moved down to the second row, starting at the beginning, and went right the number of notes I've left before this one. Really? From here, the planchette drifted left 3 places, then we moved up and right 1. From there, we moved right the number of letters in my first name. From there, go directly down 1, then back 3, finally up 1. This is fine, except for this part about the number of notes I left before this one. That's a very bad design for a puzzle. You've just made something annoying for me to do. Annoying and error prone. At first, I didn't understand what Janet Watkins, and for no purpose, but okay. At first, I didn't understand what Janet Watkins was trying to say. Then I looked closely at some of the photos, and there it was, plain as day. Why was it written there? I honestly don't know. Maybe we will find out. Oh, and one last thing. I learned that Peter Poe used to be a chef at Riverbend Penitentiary. He used to prepare the last meals for those on death row according to their wishes before their executions were carried out. According to a document I found while rummaging around the kitchen, I think he prepared last meals for each of TikTok's victims as well. That leads me to believe he was definitely involved. Was he actually TikTok? I can't answer that yet. You know, there's something unfinished about this game. Something that feels like they rushed this a little bit. Like this part about counting the number of previous notes, that's just annoying for no purpose. But there's also things like this. Like, okay, I mean, we were given this information in this document. It's almost like they wrote out the story, but there's a little bit of redundancy and repetition, almost as if they hadn't coordinated this stuff. Okay. So we have 3 puzzles, though. We have this little puzzle about the locker combination. Then we've got this puzzle, constraint satisfaction puzzle, about how to open a password, which we don't know. These go with this, and then we've got these multiple puzzles. Lock and then unlock. That might be from the... Let me write out what you said that voice EVP speaking said. Nancy kept things from us. This is from the letter 5. Ghost Red, you are EVP. And this is from Richard. All right. So we have a bunch of little mini puzzles to solve. Why don't we take a little 8-minute break? When we come back, we'll start these puzzles in earnest. All right, we're back. Anna has joined us. We've got a couple of puzzles to work on. I think the one I'm interested in starting with is this one. I want to see if this is a keyword cipher, key phrase cipher. So that's just my intuition, but let's find out. So I did open up a little page here. So if you had to guess, I would guess that we've got Kate as our keyword. And then let's just make sure this is okay. Lots of nonsense ads we have to deal with. Okay, let's see if this works. JTANCTATZEN. Okay. Let's just see what happens here. No, okay. Too easy. Too easy to be true. Let's just make sure they didn't do it in the opposite direction that this thing expects. No. Okay. Not so simple, or at least not so straightforward. All right, well, let's put that aside then. We're going to go for the low-hanging fruit first. So since that didn't work, let's move along to this one. So we've got this note from the chef. He's clearly hiding a code. He says it's going to be the password for a locked file. I really don't understand the logic of hiding it and then saying, hey, this is for a secret password. I mean, you've sort of given away to whoever finds this that they should destroy this. No, but that's okay. This guy feels guilty. All right, we understand how we're going to solve this. We're going to figure out what each of them had in this list. And then we are going to get an 8-letter word spelled out. You know, feels like you almost, well, if it was a message, then maybe we could guess it. But if it's a password, it could be just random string of letters. All right, so I scanned this and printed this out, so maybe we could have it on the page and have a little bit of an easier time working with it. Let's see what we've got here. Okay, so here are our constraints, plus an extra here about teriyaki salmon. Okay, teriyaki salmon was prepared closer to the beginning of list than the end. So probably we think this is going to be from 1 to 4. That's that taken care of. Okay, Samuel Price insisted he received no food that had the same letter appearing twice a row in its name. So Samuel Price could have had 1 broccoli bell peppers, so he doesn't have, so this we're going to say is not 5. Spaghetti marinara with meatballs and a, does that count? I'm guessing that counts as 2 letters in a row. 2 have the same letter appearing twice in a row in its same name. I'm reading this as being, I'm reading this as meaning 2 words starting with the same letter, but that's not really what it says. It's very ambiguous. Okay, I cannot go on tilt on this game. But maybe it just means we should be looking for the same letter twice in a row. Okay, so maybe I'm reading this wrong. Maybe that means literally what it says. Like, do we have double letters or between words? I really don't like that. So beef would be 2 E's. And spaghetti with 2 T's. Okay. Fish tacos with cabbage. That's 2 B's. Vegetable curry, chickpeas, but here's an S, chickpeas with the S, and then starts again with sweet potato. Does that count? Does that count? Or is there a comma so that doesn't count? All right, let's not worry about it. Let's keep going. Cheeseburger, 2 E's, so that's not 5. Teriyaki, that's, we think, is in the front, so that doesn't count. Breakfast for dinner, fluffy pancake, so this is not 5. So according to this, it's either lemon herb roasted chicken with garlic, potatoes, and lima beans, or vegetable curry, but there's 2 R's in that, so that's no good. Okay, so we think then Samuel Price, we think we have done, and he's got to be having this one. This first one. Samuel Price, we think, is having the lemon, which is the T. All right, let's do that. Marcus Bell insisted on nothing with beef. You can see how I'm going to run out of room to write this stuff here. It's going to be annoying. Did I print out another copy? I did. Nice to be able to keep notes better. Okay. Marcus Bell, nothing with beef. Who does that? What does that rule out? Chicken with potatoes, but this one's already taken. We've already done this one. I'll leave it there. So he didn't have the beef stir fry. Meatballs, he didn't have that. Fish tacos, he might have had that. Vegetable curry with basmati rice, he might have had that. Cheeseburger, he wouldn't have that. Salmon with sesame noodles and edamame, he might have had that. Breakfast for dinner, pancakes, scrambled eggs, and bacon. Bacon isn't beef. Okay, so he could have had a lot of stuff, just not meatballs, beef stir fry, and cheeseburger. Okay, that's that taken care of. Harold Minton hated cabbage and anything green. Okay, broccoli's green, so that's not gonna be Minton. Caesar salad, that's not gonna be Minton. Cabbage, that's not gonna be Minton. I know this is hard to read. Curry with sweet potatoes and spinach, that's green. He doesn't want that. Cheeseburger with caramelized onions, fries, and pickles. Pickles are green. So he's not going to want that. Pickles are green, right? Yeah. Okay, teriyaki salmon with noodles and steamed edamame. Would you call edamame green? I think I would. Pancakes, scrambled eggs, and bacon. Okay, so if I'm correct that I'm calling edamame are like little beans, like lima beans. So according to me, he would have to have the breakfast for dinner. And that's Harold Minton. And Wes edamame isn't green, but I would call edamame green. They're little beans. So that's the only one left there. Okay. That's that done. After an incident with a patient, Leonard Weiss refused to eat anything that required a fork and asked for something basic. That sounds like he wants the burger. Anything that required a fork. Okay. Fork. Basic is not pico de gallo, and lime crema. You need a fork for that. Curry, you need a fork, but cheeseburger, you don't need a fork. Salmon, yes. Pancakes, yes. Okay, so that's our cheeseburger here. This is Weiss. Our Weiss is cheeseburger, which is a K. The breakfast is an S. You can let me know if I mess anything up here. Okay, so this is Weiss. All right, we're getting there. Lillian Shore was allergic to fish and didn't want to eat with her hands. Yeah, okay. So allergic to fish. She could have had beef stir fry. She could have had the spaghetti, but she's not going to have the fish taco. So this is not Lillian, which is a 4. Vegetable curry is fine. Cheeseburger is already spoken for. Salmon she didn't have. Why do I have a not 5 here? Because that's salmon. I mean, that's the wrong person. I should be doing Lillian, which is 4. Yikes. Not a 4. Not 4. Okay, so that leaves a lot for her to eat, though. Not very helpful, but maybe we'll get that down in the end. Andrea Holt. Andrea Holt requested something with noodles. Okay, can't be that many with noodles here. Beef stir fry. That's not going to be for Andrea. Andrea Holt is 6. Spaghetti is noodles. She could be eating that. Tacos, surely not. Vegetable curry has no noodles. Cheeseburger, it's already spoken for. Teriyaki salmon with sesame noodles. So that could be her. Something with noodles. Okay, I'm just going to write here because there's only 2. It's either the spaghetti or teriyaki. Okay, that's that one done. Janet Watkins was a vegan. Okay, what does that leave us here? Janet Watkins. Let me just make a note here for spaghetti or teriyaki. Okay, Janet Watkins was a vegan. So no chicken, no beef, no meatballs, no fish tacos, vegetable curry. That's our Janet Watkins right there. Okay, so Janet Watkins is having the vegetable curry, which is letter T. And that's Watkins. Okay. Evelyn Cross is going to get whatever's left. So that's going to be our last one. All right, let's figure out what we can fill in now. Samuel Price, he's done. Marcus Bell, nothing with beef. Nothing with beef. Marcus Bell was number 3. So, no 3, no 3. This one. We're done with this. We're done with this. Done with this. Done with this. I think. Okay, anyway, nothing with beef. Okay. So he's not having this, he's not having this, he's not having this. He could be having the fish tacos, but he could also be having the teriyaki salmon. But the teriyaki salmon is in the top 4. That does make it look like or he could be having the fish tacos. Marcus Bell is either fish tacos or teriyaki. So we still have Marcus Bell to figure out. Harold Minton, we figured out he's having the breakfast, so we're done with that. Leonard Weiss, something basic, we did that. Lillian was allergic to fish. She didn't want to eat with her hands. Okay, so we didn't figure out that one. But what did we say she had to choose between? I think Lillian has to be the teriyaki because she doesn't want anything else. So I think Lillian is the teriyaki. And if that's the case, then Marcus has to be the fish tacos. Which is a T, which finishes off all of that. So we've only got 2 left, unless I've made a mistake, of course. And we said Andrea Holt is either spaghetti or the teriyaki. And now that we know it can't be the teriyaki, that makes Andrea Holt the spaghetti, which is a, what is the letter here? Spaghetti is a J. Which leaves Evelyn Cross, who has no preference with the beef stir fry, which is an A. So according to my solution, we've got a password of SATR R T J A P. Doesn't spell a word, but it's never going to spell a word. So, okay, here is my solution. As long as I didn't do anything wrong, what's the chance I did something wrong with all this mess? Pretty high. On the other hand, we got to the end with all the constraints solved, including that the teriyaki salmon was closer to the beginning than the end. So I'm going to call this done until we have to use it to unlock this password. So we'll consider this puzzle done for now. Someone can tell me if they want to speak up in the chat whether they think I've made a mistake. If so, we can return to that. Okay, let's do this puzzle that we know how to do now. So the planchette, that sounds French. Does anyone know what's the origin etymology of planchette? Feels like it's a shape. It feels like it's almost like an arrow shape, a planchette. All right, so there's a bit annoying here about the number of notes, but let's just go here. It seems like it's saying we start on the J. If I had to guess, I'd guess that's telling us our starting point. Number of spaces we drifted to the left match the number of victims. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So went to a B. We think we have to get a combination. I don't know how that's gonna happen here, but we'll try to figure it out. Let's just do these first. So J, starting on the J, goes of course, it could be that it's reversed. J could be the ending point, but that would be a weird choice. Then we move down to the second row. Down, does it mean we moved down to the second row, or we started at the second row? Started at the beginning. So started here. And went right. The number of the notes I've left before this one. I really don't want to have to open 4 envelopes looking for her notes, but I mean, it's like 3. Let's see if we can just ballpark it and guess it. Let's guess 3. Right, the number of notes I left before this one. So 1, 2, 3. So is it a Q or is it more likely an R? Let's just understand how this works first. From there, the planchette drifted left 3 places, and then we moved up and right 1. 1, 2, 3, up and right 1, which would give us to a C. I guess we have to search through her notes to get the right number, unless someone wants to speak up in the chat about the number of her prior messages. Otherwise, we just have to go count them because I don't want to do this. I mean, I don't want to do this period, but I don't want to be guessing. It's just another, there's lots wrong with this puzzle. First of all, it's just brute force annoying work, but it's also the perfect example of a fragile puzzle because we've now got a sequence, and if we get off anywhere, we're going to be off from there forward. So here's a note from Nancy. That's one. This is the other fun part where I have to do this. Oh, okay. So thankfully, you've given me the answer confirming 4 before I finish it. Normally what happens is I spend a half an hour, I do it, and then someone comes in and tells me. But here is a little bit of the answer, 4. 4 previous letters from Nancy. Okay, 4 letters should be the letter R. Okay, so that's what we guessed. That's what I guessed, but was not sure about. All right, let's finish with our rules here. Second row, start at the beginning, went right the number of notes. So we started at the beginning and went 1, 2, 3, 4. That got us to the R. All right. Okay. Okay. And then it says, from there it drifted left 3 places. 1, 2, 3. Top of the O. Do we care about that O? Or do we skip the O and it's just resetting us? Then we moved up and right 1. That got us to the C. From there, we move right the number of letters in my first name, which is Nancy, N-A-N-C-Y, which gives us an H. Do we need to know that H, or is this still just directions? From there, we go directly down 1. I guess directly down 1 brings us to the U. I'm just writing all these letters. We'll see if we have to skip any later. Directly down 1, or is directly down 1 here? Then back 3. 1, 2, 3, maybe an R. And then up 1 probably goes to a K. At first, I didn't understand what she was trying to say. Then when I looked closely at some of the other photos, and there it was. Why was it written there? I honestly don't know. At first, I didn't understand what Janet Watkins was trying to say. So they're talking to Janet Watkins, trying to get the combination to her locker. And Janet Watkins has given us this, which this looks like, okay, so this is saying brochure, B-R-O-C-H-U-R, this K, this is not a K, this is an E. Okay, so this is saying brochure. So all it says is brochure. Okay, so then she's saying, at first I didn't understand what Janet Watkins was trying to say. Then I looked at the photos in the brochure. So I think the brochure was in our first letter. In fact, we just looked at it. And now somewhere in the photos in the brochure is going to be her combination. Okay, I think I see it right there. Okay. All right, so, all right, that wasn't so painful. So that's not bad. I mean, it turned out we did get all the letters brochure except for the one little K I mistranscribed. But at least in this case, even if you skipped a few, you would still figure out it was brochure. Okay, so we could look if there are other... Oh, I see. There's more stuff written, though. Help is written here on this photo. I see some Morse... Almost looks like Morse code here. Huh. Almost looks like Morse code here. Are there other things in these photos we should be looking at? Maybe it's not Morse code. It's a lot of dots, though. It's very weird. Okay, well, there's going to be our combination. Then here we've got someone wrote help on the wall. Let's look at some of these other photos, see if there's something else in any of these that we should be paying attention to. More dots. I guess it's not Morse code. I don't see any writing. What about in this one? There's an open window here. Something else jumps out. Okay, not Morse code. All right, so I think we've got her. I think we've got Janet Watkins combo. All right. Okay, no more hints now till we ask. So that's everything solved except this. Now, presumably, at the end of this letter, we're going to be asked to give this combination to unlock her locker and get access to some extra information. But no place to put that till the end of the letter. It feels like we should be able to solve this. All right, let's talk about this for a second. What are we looking at here? 3 messages of a sort. This one looks like a code. This one looks like a very different code. And then this one, lock and then unlock is all it says, but then it kind of continues here. And this message was Nancy hid something. Where did I write down what that text said? Nancy kept things from us. Nancy kept things from us. Let me just make sure there's no... Oh! That's weird. I mean, I can clearly see there's something lighting up here. Maybe you have a hard time seeing it, but it looks like it's just the shadow impression of this logo. So I'm not sure why that would be there or be of any import. Nothing else. All right, so this felt to me like it was going to be a key phrase cipher, but it didn't quite work. I'm so worried. I'm always worried about these online tools not working right. Well, I mean, this one looks like it's binary. I'm just going to write this out so we can... One zero zero one 1. Of course, it could be reversed too. 0 0 1 1 0 1 0 0 0 1 0 1 0 0 1 0. Binary. It's a weird way to break it down. Of course, you could also look at these like dot dash dash dot dot dash dot or vice versa. Only got 2 lights. I mean, Morse code or binary are the things that would make the most sense. We could break it wherever we wanted, but we have 14, 20, 25 length, which doesn't seem like it's going to be a binary code. Although, could have a 5. You could always have a binary code that's not ASCII. This would be 5 letters of 5 places. 5 places. Let's just make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 to the 5th. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32. So with five binary digits, we could get the alphabet from A to Z with room to spare. I suppose we could try that by hand. So if we did that, we would be looking at 5 digits for each one. So we would be looking at... We did think it was some sort of binary, 5-digit binary. It would be 1 0 0 1 1. That would be the first word. And then 0 1 0 0 1. Then 1 1 0 1 0. Then 0 0 1 1 0 0 1 1 0. That would be our 5-digit words. Of course, the ones could be zeros and the zeros could be ones for all we know. So it's kind of annoying to be trying to do this by hand for something that might not be right. Let's just do it a little bit. 1 plus 2 is 3. If we've got 5 digits, 3, 4, 5, these are the 1s, the 2s, the 4s, the 8s, and the 16s. So this is 3 plus 16. This would make that a 19. This would be 1 plus 8. That would make that letter 9. This would be 2 plus 24. That would make this letter 25. This would be letter 5. And this would be letter 6. 19, 9, 25, 5, and 6. Or you could reverse the 1s and 0s and do it again. 5 and 6 is E, F. That's a Y. Letter 9 is an I. What is letter 19? This is too much work for random messing around. Okay, XYZ. One of the things that I have to remind myself some of this stuff is distinctly unpleasant trying to do in one sitting in front of a camera in one session where time feels like it's a little bit important. Maybe if you're getting these letters once a week, you don't mind having to try lots of these things. Okay, letter 19 is an S. So, SYF, SIVYF. If it's a binary code. But of course, the 1s could be 0s. This could be 01100. I mean, the question is, how much do I want to keep doing this? Okay, and the answer is zero much more do I want to be doing this. And the channel seems to have figured it out. So I figured out what to do, and Bo Evans says, so did I, and Natalia says, me too. Okay, let's have the answer. One of you can let us know. Is it Morse code? Quite possible. You only need what's on the paper, no need for binary or Morse. Interesting. Okay. Let's go away from the channel for a second. So something has occurred to me. Are these not independent? We counted this at 25. Let's count the length of this, because at a quick glance, it looks like you might have 25 letters. And in which case, we might have interweaved message. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Okay, so that's good. So this is one of these things that I frequently try to make us do. Like, make all the observations you can, count the numbers. So we counted this 25. We thought about, can you break this into 5 words of 5? But the coincidence that we've got 25 here 25 here, and then we've got this that doesn't make sense, now is making sense. So what we're going to have is an interleaved message. We notice that this looks like maybe a reasonable distribution for English. And then this is going to make sense. It's going to tell us, take the lock letters first. That phrase comes first, then comes the unlock phrase. Okay, good. So what we've got here is lock, unlock, unlock, lock, lock, unlock, lock. Now we've got our next thing, which is unlock, unlock, lock, 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 unlock, lock. Next line, unlock, 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 lock, unlock, locked. Next line, unlock, unlock, lock, lock, unlock. Okay, and then he says lock first. So we're going to take all the L's and spell out something. JANKNOWS. Jansen knows. This is the lock interleave. And now the unlock is TICK. TOCK. Jansen knows TikTok. And then SNAME. TikTok's, where I missed the N name. Okay, Jansen knows TikTok's name. All right, Jansen knows TikTok's name, and these all combine into one. This is our Ghost Rid letter 5. Okay, clever. Not entirely unpleasant. And if we had done our proper work, and counted these letters, if we had counted this the way we should have, and written down that this is 25 letters and this has 25, then I would have made the connection much sooner. So that's a penalty. That's my fault for not counting this. That would have given us the answer quickly. Okay, and then why is it important that Nancy's hiding some stuff from us? We don't know. All right, so I believe we have everything from today. So that means we can read the end of this and see if we can put the information in and get something. Okay, so good work in the channel for figuring that out before me. This week's contents. Here are going to be our hints, I guess. The Polaroid of Peter Poe, the head of kitchen staff. Could this guy be TikTok? Probably not, because he looks like he has a tattoo on his arm, and we don't think TikTok has a tattoo. The 4x6 photo is another piece of the puzzle. The Ouija board, printed one off that I had on my computer. The trigger item from the session. Using items I found for Sherry, Kate, and Richard, I tried to get some answers about who or what killed them. Each of them gave me something unique. I think I may need to use all of it to determine their message to me really was. Nancy's note. Okay, I feel like there are some things you left out about this case you didn't tell me. He's talking to us. and the fact that we didn't mention that our wife, Nancy's mother, had been committed. I know you, and I didn't keep in touch that much over the years, but why didn't you tell me any of this before I set up camp here? I thought Nancy was the only personal connection you had to this place. Is there anything else I need to know? Last meals. This should be useful once I match up which meal with which of TikTok's victims. That should be everything I've included. I'll upload a picture of what's inside Janet Watkins' locker if I can get into it. I'll need the locker number and combination to access it. Okay, so it's ready for us to answer that question. Let's go ahead and do that then. Okay, the locker number and combination, I guess it wants those combined. We were told it was 212. Why is it making us just type in 212 again? I don't know. I don't understand the logic of needing that information from us. All right, now is where we're going to figure out if we've solved the constraint satisfaction properly. Feels like there's lots of ways this could be wrong. But do we think it needs to be uppercase? Normally it's not, right? SATRTJKT. I feel like this is going to make me angry. So let's take a deep breath here. No. Okay. Yeah, I was right. I am angry. Okay. Okay, lots of ways this could have gone wrong. Let's figure out if I've written this down correctly. We said Harold Minton had the... I don't want to write this one here. So probably we're putting this in right. So the first check is if I've written down the letters correctly. We said Harold Minton had the breakfast, which was the letter S. Evelyn Cross, we said, had the beef stir fry, which was the A. Marcus Bell had the fish tacos, which looks like a T. Lillian had the teriyaki. Looks like an R. Samuel Price, we said, had the lemon. I guess that's a T. Andrea had the spaghetti, which looks like a J. Leonard Weiss had the cheeseburger, which looked like a K. Janet Watkins had the vegetable curry, which looks like a T. Okay, so it looks like I put in the right letters. Oh, this is a locker combination. Not this. This was the password. Okay. Locker combination. All right, you guys are probably screaming in the channel. I can see you're trying to help me. Okay. All right. Locker combination. Okay. All right, Jesse, take it easy. All right, our locker combination was 36. Does it want the hyphens? I'll put them in exactly how we found them. 36, 13, 19. Probably doesn't want them. Nothing happens when you do that, and it's already wrong. So let's get rid of the hyphens. Okay, whatever. Based on what I found inside Janet Watkins' work locker, Nancy was the last one to use it. The locker mostly just contained Nancy's personal effects, purse, phone, charger, wallet, etc. It also contained Nancy's next note. I'll send a copy of that with next week's mailing once I've had time to dissect it. It seems that Nancy found something else beside those books on the occult that Janet had left behind. She found a note that Janet wrote. It was stuck behind the back panel of the locker. It was hidden in such a way that it wouldn't be obvious to anyone who might search the locker. The note reads as follows. Valewood is a battleground. Those of us who are good are facing off against the others who aren't good. Someone's trying to catch my attention. What is happening? There should be an emergency check the chat button. There is. That's the check Jesse button. I just noticed it when I noticed it. Okay, Valewood is a battleground. Those of us who are good at facing off against the others who aren't good. Our group is on the right side of this and trying our best to stop them. But I've seen what happened to the other members of my group. One by one, they have been eliminated, which just leaves me. I'm afraid for my own life and look over my shoulder repeatedly. I've been reading books to try and understand what the other side is doing. But most of it is confusing to me. What I am sure of is that I am being followed. Will TikTok come for me? I think it's a certainty, but I'm on high alert. I have some ideas about who TikTok might be, but I can't be sure. The only thing I know is the dark figure I saw following me was between 5'8" and 6'1". Can't be certain more than that. I know that doesn't narrow things down very much. I won't lie, I'm scared. There is evidence here in droves of medical malfeasance, unsanctioned human trials, devil worship, murder, deception, drug trafficking, patient abuse, and all sorts of other offenses that are too numerous to list. I have to make sure that when we vacate this place, nothing is destroyed or removed. To accomplish that, I've arranged for asbestos to be found in numerous places around the facilities. That should do it. It also makes the timetable of our departure one that I control. I've already made the call. To whoever finds this, I hope you're looking for the truth. Just be warned, it's likely much darker than you imagined it would be. Janet Watkins. That's about all I was able to learn, but it seems this story is much bigger than we realized. Signed, Elijah. Okay, so this is letter 5, note, online note. We better remember that in case we need to go back to it. Let's take a screenshot. Online note from our girl Janet Watkins. And she says, she doesn't say TikTok is between 5'8" and 6'1". She says, dark figure following her, possibly TikTok, a big question mark, is between 5'8" and 6'1" inch. Okay, that's another one of our clues. Okay, so it seems like the chat was trying to stop me from putting in the password. I did catch me. Okay, so that's it. We're done with today's session. Took us 2 hours to decode everything. A little bit of false starts, but not terrible. And now we've got a big conspiracy going on, and maybe good versus evil. And maybe another clue about TikTok. Although I like this idea that now we've got a potential narrowing down, but we don't even know that it's TikTok. So we can't be sure we can use this information. And a new suspect, although he appears to have... Well, this is not our suspect. This is not a plausible suspect, because he's clearly trying to write a note about revealing information. And then Jansen knows TikTok's name. Now, which one was Jansen? Before we end today's session, can someone remind me? Is Jansen this? Who is Jansen? Do we already know the name Jansen? Does someone remember who Jansen is, and why do we not have a card? It says, look into the name Morris Cook. TikTok does this for him. But who is Jansen? He's the friend that got Nancy into Vailwood. He knows the head of surgery. Why do we not have a... Why do we not have an index card on this person? Why do we not have an index card on Jansen? Okay. So he's the guy you think that pulled strings to get Nancy in. Nancy mentioned him in one of her letters. Okay. Find Nancy's. Okay. Jansen knows his name, huh? Okay. All right. Well, thank you for joining me. Now we're going to take a little break. I'm going to sign off, but then I think in about an hour, less than an hour, I'll be back on a new stream to open up the Seventh Citadel Season 2, Return to the Seventh Citadel box that arrived from Kickstarter or GameFound, whatever it is. So some of you I'll see in a few minutes after a little bit of a break. Thank you for joining me for this session. I still have really mixed feelings about this set. Although I do like that this story is some epic, weird conspiracy story. I am curious to see how it turns out. We're not even at the halfway point, so that's kind of fun. All right, I see you all. I'll see some of you in 45 minutes. The rest of you I'll see next week.